What's up? What's up? What's up? Welcome everyone who is joining us for the first show of the year for the Rise and Fall Game Day morning. What's going on, guys? My name is Dave Sarner. I'm going to be your host for today's episode. If you guys weren't here last year, or if you know me from Twitter and graphic design, stuff that I'm doing, jersey swaps, banners, and so forth, I'm actually a very big fantasy football nut. A lot of my friends always tell me, hey, you should, help with some advice and stuff like that. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert here, guys, but I know what I'm talking about to a degree. But the idea here today is that I don't want to just give you guys my rankings and go through what I think you guys should do, because there's so many people out there that do that already. The way I want to kind of do this is a little different. So the way we're going to do this today is we're going to go through the ECR rankings for week 3. If you guys aren't familiar with the ECR, it's known as the Expert Consensus Rankings. This is a consensus of like all the experts in the fantasy football realm from all the different websites, 150, total expert directory. And it basically kind of averages their entire rankings together. So for today, we're going to kind of go with that, right? And we want to be able to essentially pull some trends, pull some data, and obviously, make some observations on which players are, experts expecting to rise up the boards this week, or which experts are expecting it to fall on the board as well. We're going through DFS, so there'll be pricing on this that I'll be showing you as well. Some DFS plays that I really like that I've kind of was like messing around with this morning when I was going through the data. And then at the end of the day, there's also which I'm sure some of you will be here for, mainly here for, is the Parlay Pick of the Week segment, which is going to be a contest, essentially, or a way to enter into a contest to potentially win a fully custom, legitimate, authentic jersey of your choice. Could be a legend, could be a normal player, a current player, or a player for, during the draft or whatever, a rookie down the line. So there's a lot to get through today before we do get to the contest details. That will be kind of at the end of the second hour, most likely. I'm trying to go for about an hour and a half today to hour 45 max if we can. Just kind of depends on how the rankings take us and kind of where we end up at the end of it. But all those details will be discussed at the end of the stream. We'll kind of go through how the contest will work. I'll provide you guys with that parlay pick of the week that will give you guys that opportunity to enter for that jersey. And then hopefully with the rankings and everything that we talk about, you guys will also be ready for your, free matchups. All right. So with all that being said, let's just hop into it, man. I'm not going to sugarcoat things. I'm not going to try to sit here and try to fluff anything. We're just going to dive into the rankings. I'm going to show you guys how I set everything up here. I'm going to do this every week, so you guys will be able to see kind of how I set it up. We'll look at the rankings overall. And let me be clear, the ECR rankings are not my personal rankings. Now, I agree with a lot of it, and we might talk about variations of where I like people higher or people lower. But this is from the ECR, from fantasypros.com. If you guys never been to the site, the link is down in the description below. So if you guys want to use a companion, or just kind of, tweak certain things, if you don't do half point PPR and you want to see it standard or PPR full point, you could do that as well. If you want to just go for the top 10 most accurate fantasy experts right now and do their consensus, you can also do that as well on the site. All right, so without further ado, let's just hop into the rankings here. And what we're going to do is we're going to start going down the list here. So let me just explain kind of how I break everything down for the show here. Essentially, the way I look at everything is a lot of this data, like I said, is being pulled from fantasypros.com's consensus rankings. Essentially, everything from here, from the week 3 ranking to about opponent is essential, and projected points is from the fantasypros.com. What I went ahead and did also is I add a little element because I like to know which players are going to have the best matchups, and I want to know it right on my screen. I don't want to have to go into Yahoo Fantasy or DraftKings to kind of bring up the list and then search for the guy, or if you don't have him on your team, what's this going to be about? So the idea here is that I wanted to kind of bring everything together, and it helps you really get a nice snapshot of everything going on. And that's the same for the DK prices here. So when we scroll down here, we're going to go through the quarterbacks first. And obviously at number 1 on our list this week is Kyler Murray, going into Jacksonville to play the Jaguars. I don't think this really needs to be discussed. He's coming off a really, really good week right now. Obviously, last 2 weeks he's been playing like an MVP. He's going up against Jacksonville, who has not been exactly the best right now. They look better last week, but I still think Urban Meyer is still kind of figuring out the pro landscape, if you will. So obviously Kyler Murray at number 1 is a no-brainer. Number 2, Lamar Jackson. Now this actually went up a little bit since this morning. He was at number 3, and now he's above Mahomes at number 2 on the list against the Detroit Lions. Lions have been pretty good against quarterbacks, but it's Lamar Jackson. He's going to have that run element in the game. So that's going to be something to look out for, obviously. 7,800, I actually think is a pretty good price for Lamar Jackson. So that's probably, if you're going to go one of those top tier quarterbacks, he might be the guy to do. As you can see there, projected 25.5 fantasy points. This is all based, guys, by the way, on half-point PPR, the projected points, rankings, and so forth. The pricing is actually, and the opponent positional rank is actually based on DraftKings, so I believe that's full point, but it's not going to make that much variations of difference. Generally, it's only going to be a couple, spots maybe that are changed from the rankings. So number 3, we got Patrick Mahomes, guys. Now, he has dropped a spot from last week's rankings, as you can see from the difference. Now, that difference is just essentially telling us where they were ranked in week 2 to where they are ranked in week 3, obviously. Now, of course, these can be for different reasons. Different opponents, different ranks, different players either hurt or not hurt that don't have to be this player. Could be the offensive line for quarterbacks, or just anything in between, injuries and so forth. Number 4, we got Russell Wilson staying in the same spot against Minnesota. I actually really love this matchup. I think this is a pretty high-end game for points. And obviously, with Russell Wilson being high up there, I also like DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, as do the experts, as we'll eventually see. Josh Allen comes in at number 5. He drops a little bit. It's pretty noticeable if you've been watching the last 2 weeks. Josh Allen just doesn't exactly look right now. He doesn't look bad, but he doesn't look like the MVP caliber Josh Allen that we saw, the last 2 seasons. He's looking a little more, actually, like his rookie year. So that's a little interesting. We'll see how that kind of plays out this week. I am expecting him to do well this week against Washington, but here's my worry with this matchup. And granted, listen, I understand. I'm going to be upfront and honest. I'm a Washington football fan. Don't ask me why, but I'm not going to be biased. I'm going to try to be as analytical as possible here. This is the way I see this Buffalo Bills-Washington matchup here. And real quick. All right, so the way the Washington matchup is, there's 2 things that you need to look out for in this game. One's going to be Josh Allen, right? Josh Allen against the Washington defense. Both have underperformed the entire year so far. Washington's defense, listen, I'm a fan, and I personally think they just need to blitz more and design some more exotic packages that might get this going. I think they try to rely too much on the talent of the defensive line, even though it's great talent. They haven't been elite together yet. They've had good games, but they've also had bad games. And what I've noticed is those bad games tend to come against good teams. So Buffalo is supposed to be a good team. So I do expect, if trends have been accurate, that Washington's going to struggle again today. However, they could also pick it up. Josh Allen has also been struggling, so that's kind of the other side of the coin. Does that make sense? So, I guess you have to figure out on your end, if you're going to bet this game, if you're going to play these players, obviously you're going to play Terry, you're going to play Stephon Diggs, you're going to play Gibson, Logan Thomas, the guys that are starting. And I'm not saying you're not going to bench Josh Allen. He's high in the rankings this week. The thing with this is that it could very well be, which one is going to perform, which one is going to actually step up, the Washington defense or Josh Allen. If both step up, it could still be a gritty game, but I expect some points to be, had there for Josh Allen. And if they don't show up, then I, expect a big day for him as well. But it's hard to bet. And honestly, it kind of makes me want to fade out any, bet on the game itself. Like player props for that game, I'm down. You want to give me a player prop on Terry, player prop on Diggs, player prop on Gibson for rushing. I think he'll have over whatever the rushing is. I'm sure it's around 60 or 70 or something along those lines. I think he's going to have a big day. And even though he was falling a little short last week, we'll talk about Gibson. He was still averaging 5.3 yards a carry. So that's something to look out for. It's just about touches. And I'll say this about the offense for Washington. Scott Turner, he's the problem. Okay. It's just, he doesn't really, situationally, he tends to kind of do the opposite of what you would expect sometimes. So I think this is going to be more of a running game. I think Devin Singletary will get going a little bit. I think Gibson scores this week. And The only reason that he might not is if like J.D. McKissick steals something from him. But going back to Josh Allen here, guys, I actually like the matchup. As a Washington fan, I'm worried that he's going to just tear us up this week and get back on track. And if I had to guess or gamble on someone getting back on track between Josh Allen and Washington football defense, it's going to be Josh Allen, mainly because it's just Josh Allen compared to the entire defense that has to get on track for Washington. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what Washington comes out and does. They've been slow in the first half, so maybe Josh Allen can take advantage of some points early. Hopefully we'll get some passing touchdowns, not rushing touchdowns in that first half for his sake. The next one is one of our biggest risers of the week here on the boards, and that's Jalen Hurts. He was 10th last week. He's at number 6, so top 10 this week for him. No surprise, it's probably because he's playing Dallas's defense, who did play better last week, but they're also still missing a couple guys. Division rivals. I'll be honest, man. Eagles look much better than I thought they were going to be this year. So I actually kind of like this one at number 6. It's hard because then they have Dak Prescott at number 7, right? And so let me bring up the list here so you guys can see this yourselves. Going back to the rankings here. So as you see here, we have, Jalen Hurts at number 6, right? We have Dak Prescott at number 7. Now, Eagles are playing stingy defense, like I said. I think this can go either way, though. Division games never really scare me with the defenses, especially with a high-powered offense like the Cowboys. I still expect Dak to eat, and so do the experts, as he actually went up a tick from last week. Number 8 is Tom Brady, which actually falls 2 spots, obviously, because he's playing the Rams. This is purely a matchup drop for him, so it's nothing to be too worried about or anything along those lines. Tom Brady does have Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, but Antonio Brown is out today. So just keep that in mind, guys. If you have Antonio Brown, make sure he's not in your lineups. How this affects them? I mean, listen, here's where I think, if I had to guess, I'm going to assume that Rob Gronkowski is a tick up for me. He's a guy that I'm probably still going to put in my lineups. He probably was, up there anyway. AB, I don't know. OJ Howard is even there. I mean, Scotty Miller comes to mind as a guy that might replace AB, but I'm not going to rely on that. Maybe in a DFS play, like a sneaky sleeper DFS play, Miller might be a guy that you can. So let's see. Number 9 is Justin Herbert. That kind of stays the same. I'm surprised he's not a little higher. I know they're playing the Chiefs, but the Chiefs are letting up a lot of points to quarterbacks right now, and maybe that's elevated because of Lamar Jackson. He's a little bit more of a runner than Justin Herbert would be. But number 9 is a good spot for him. I also love his value for DFS at 6,500. As you can see, kind of in that top 10, he's the cheapest of the options. So if you guys want to stack Justin Herbert, and Keenan Allen, go for it. You can even honestly do Justin Herbert and Mike Williams with the way he's playing. But I'm going to say this about Mike Williams now. I could be totally wrong. There's something about him that does scare me. He always has these things where he has a couple weeks he goes off, and then it's like complete hit or miss, like 0-point games, getting hurt. Something happens, And so that's kind of where I am concerned with that a little bit. At the same time, you know what? I'm not going to be too concerned at the moment. You got to just kind of do what you got to do. And he is producing. So as long as he's producing, I'll go with it. But the second he starts going back and forth, that is going to scare me. No doubt about it. That will absolutely scare me. And I might stay away from him going into that. Let's see here. So going down the rankings here, we got after the top 10, or I'm sorry, at 10, we got Aaron Rodgers at 30. The defensive opponent rank going against him is 30th. He comes in at 6,700. I do like his matchup as well. I'm a little surprised they did drop. I think they're expecting the San Francisco's defense to come out really firing this week. Is their cornerback situation settled? Because I do know they lost Jason Verrett, right? So that's a situation that I'm going to take advantage of Rodgers there. I actually think he would be higher than this, but apparently, according to the experts, he has dropped 3 spots in one of our deeper falls in the top 10 here. Actually, the deepest fall in the top 10. So that's an interesting one here. Keep an eye on that. I think he's going to be okay, but that's just me. Now, here's a guy who's interesting, Matthew Stafford at 11. This is one that I'm a little worried about. Tampa Bay, I know they're a little banged up in the secondary, but listen, we've seen Stafford play really well in the first 2 weeks, and I'm hoping that he could just lean on his receivers. But I wouldn't be at all surprised if this is kind of a down week for Matthew Stafford. Having him at number 11, in my opinion, might be even a little too high, but it is what it is. I think if you have him, you're going to start him. Obviously, it's a tough matchup, but this could very well be a shootout. If both defenses, or both offenses are really in tune, then that could really help out. Although, keep in mind, Darrell Henderson most likely out in this game, unless he already is. I have to check the updates, which we'll do in the next segment. Rounding out the rest of the top 20 for quarterbacks, we have Daniel Jones at number 12, our biggest riser of the week here. After a really good game against Washington. Listen, it's Atlanta, so I'm assuming that's really why he's up here. Not just because of his play, but really the fact that he's playing Atlanta without A.J. Terrell, by the way. He's out for today's game. So that secondary, that was bad the first 2 weeks for Atlanta, is even worse today. So again, Daniel Jones to me is like one of those perfect DFS plays. And unless you guys have, I would say from Tom Brady up, I would probably go, I would obviously throw Herbert and Rodgers in there. I would say you could probably throw Daniel Jones above Matthew Stafford potentially, just because of the opponent matchup. But at the same time, I'm not really going to go out of my way to start Daniel Jones outside of DFS for me personally. Number 13 is Ryan Tannehill. He drops a spot here today against Indianapolis. I think this is a struggle spot for Ryan Tannehill. I'm pretty sure most people have stayed away from him the first couple weeks, hoping they're doing that today. DFS, not exactly a fan at the 6,200 mark. 19 points against Indy's defense. I feel like they're kind of projecting that Carson Wentz is going to get hurt. As of right now, Carson Wentz is playing. I understand that, listen, he has 2 bum knees and he can get hurt and this game can get out of hand or whatever. The thing is, I think Indy's defense can keep them in the game as, any given day. I think this defense can do a lot for you. They're good enough where they can keep you in games and really just wreak havoc on an offense outside of Derrick Henry, in my opinion, that has not been performing the way that we all expected them. So I actually would be more down on Tannehill than the experts are, who have him ranked at 13. Teddy Bridgewater at 14. I love this rank for him. I think I had him around 15, 16 if I was going to put him somewhere. He's up 2 spots at 5,800. It's a great price. Kirk Cousins is 6,300 going against Seattle. It could be somewhat of a shootout here. His price tag for DFS kind of has me out on him. I would rather go with some of these other guys below, like Justin Fields and Derek Carr. Even in a tough matchup, you got to remember, guys, Derek Carr is going up against Miami, who's starting Jacoby Brissett. So I don't care how good the defense is. I'm not saying he's going to put up 20 points, but I think he might have more opportunities to get some more points for you because of Jacoby Brissett. And I'm sure I'll be wrong about that, and Jacoby Brissett will just tear it up for some reason. Justin Fields, guys, is the obvious one that we want to talk about here. He's at number 17 in the rankings, and I think this is really intriguing for David Montgomery. I want to see how his rushing ability is going to be with David Montgomery in a full game. We know what he can kind of do in the pass game. I want to see how dynamic he's going to be and kind of what the play calling is going to be with him as a starter throughout the entire game. So this is going to be a really interesting one. I kind of agree with the experts. I'm cool with 17. That's a good area. And by the way, guys, just so you're aware, if you're seeing 21 here, that just means that these guys were out of the top 20 the week before. And it just doesn't matter what their rank is at that point. If they're out of the top 20, most likely, you're going to be going up decently significantly if they're bumping up into the top 20 now. Okay. Matt Ryan at 19. That actually scares me a little bit more. I know Giants have been you could tell the 23rd against the pass for quarterbacks, giving up a lot of points to quarterbacks right now. That said, I don't love this matchup for the Falcons. I think this is a get-right game for the Giants. And we'll talk about that because the spread is really nice in my opinion right now. We're not nice, but I think in my opinion, I think that they're gonna win this game by at least a touchdown, the Giants. So that's just my hot take on that game. Baker Mayfield, now he's one of the guys who's dropped the most at -6. He was 14 last week. He's 20 this week, going up against Chicago, who we all kind of thought might have been suspect in the secondary, I guess you can say. This week, it's a little different. They played really well last week, kind of proved everyone wrong. Now they're ranked 21st against quarterbacks. At 6,000, I think I would probably go Justin Fields and Daniel Jones and even Teddy Bridgewater over that. But if you have them for your lineups, I don't think it's going to be that terrible, but it might be a little tough. No Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham coming back. How healthy is he actually going to be? I think this could be a very heavy run game, but at the same time, Chicago is kind of strong in the run game. So that's where it scares me. So we'll see what happens here. I'm kind of in agreement with the experts, though. Baker Mayfield dropping 6 spots. Cause for concern there, no doubt about it. At 21, you got Joe Burrow, guys. -8 from last week. 13-point differential. Now, obviously, Pittsburgh is a little bit better of a defense than what they faced last week, to a degree. I mean, not much. And to be honest with you, Pittsburgh's letting up the 24th, is 24th against quarterbacks right now. So they're letting up, what is that, 6 most points to quarterbacks or something like that? It's really interesting to see. Oh, I'm sorry, it's 8th, right? So 8th most points to to quarterbacks that the Pittsburgh Steelers are giving up, and yet Joe Burrow's dropped -8. Now, no T. Higgins could be a reason for that. I don't know, man. I kind of think Jamar Chase and Tyler Boyd and Joe Mixon can kind of handle it, I don't know. I think this is a really misleading one. I would love to see some of the more analysis on that, on why many of them think that. But the trend is pretty outstanding. I mean, it's the top trend down, -8 spots from last week, all the way at 21 out of the top 20 for Joe Burrow. Roethlisberger comes in at number 22 against Cincinnati. That's a tougher matchup. Plus, he's questionable. Plus, no Deontay Johnson. I'm probably fading Big Ben this week. And the receiving game outside of maybe Chase Claypool. Obviously, Najee Harris I do like, and I think he'll get some more receiving game this week with Deontay out. Maybe Pat Freiermuth gets involved a little bit more this week with Deontay out, or James Washington steps up. I doubt that one. At number 23, you got Trevor Lawrence in a tough matchup against Arizona, who has been, even though they're giving up their 22nd against the quarterback position, Arizona's a tough defense. And that line is a little, I worry about that for Trevor Lawrence today with Chandler Jones and company. I think they're going to attack Trevor Lawrence, and I think it's going to be a rough game. 23 makes sense for me. Jimmy Garoppolo, 24, no surprises there. That's pretty standard for him in a matchup against Green Bay. Jared Goff at 25. Against Baltimore, it's going to be a tough matchup. I do know there's going to be some players missing from that, but again, I just don't think that Detroit's going to be able to compete with Baltimore. Taylor Heineke, I think is actually kind of a little low here. I understand Buffalo's first against the quarterbacks, but I like Taylor. I mean, I really do. I think he's going to have a pretty good game overall here. Even if they lose, even if the defense fails, I like Taylor Heineke. If you had to go, tell me, ask me out of like these 5 guys here, which one would you choose down here? I would easily say Taylor Heineke. I don't care about that matchup. I really don't. Mac Jones, I do kind of care more. Marshawn Lattimore is active today, which makes the Mac Jones matchup even a little harder at number 27. New Orleans is giving up the third fewest points to quarterbacks right now, so that's going to be tough. And then Jameis Winston, guys, listen, he regressed back to the mean, right? I mean, we knew that was going to happen against New England. It's an interesting matchup because, you never know what you're going to get with Jameis, but 28 is pretty understandable for down here. And then, of course, Jacoby Brissett and Carson Wentz. Now, he's active, so just be mindful. Carson Wentz is active, but he has 2 bum knees, and that could be a problem. But he gets the easiest quarterback matchup so far between 2 weeks against Tennessee. So that should be really interesting, guys. That kind of rounds out your quarterbacks here. We'll go into our top risers and top fallers. In terms of DFS plays, again, Joe Burrow, I actually kind of like. Taylor Heineke, a deep sleeper there. I just think that Buffalo might not be as good as they're letting on when, they played Big Ben and then they played the Dolphins, who Jacoby Brissett coming in, pretty early in the game. It's a little misleading, right? So I think that Taylor Heineke is a pretty sneaky play here. You can stack him and Terry. I think it's a great matchup. I don't think it's a great matchup. Tre'Davious White's good, but I think Terry's going to do what he got to do, Other plays here, I like Derek Carr. I don't care about that Miami defense. Jacoby Brissett changes some things for me. Daniel Jones, obviously at 5,800, I do like as well. Matt Ryan, listen, I mean, everything tells me he should have a good game, and by all means, it's a good matchup, so it wouldn't be a terrible play. I just have a feeling it's just not going to go well. And then Justin Fields. I love the Justin Fields against Cleveland. I know Cleveland's a tough defense, but I think he can get some running yards that will get you some good points this week. All right, so that's the quarterback position. I'm going to run a little quicker through the running backs once we get past the top 15, mainly because there's a lot more running backs and wide receivers than there are quarterbacks. Chris McCaffrey already played. Derrick Henry, he's number 1 essentially on the board now. 8,600 on DraftKings, obviously the highest. He had a monster game. I would probably stay away from this for the point value for DFS. If you have him in regular fantasy, you're starting him. Dalvin Cook is likely out. I believe he was pretty much confirmed out now, so it's going to be Alexander Mattison. If he is available in your leagues and you want to go for it, could be a good opportunity. Seattle is giving up the most points to running backs, so this could be a pretty smash Alexander Mattison spot. But usually history has told us if we say that, he's probably not going to perform. So I would say take that with caution. If you have, any options, I would say the top 30 up until maybe Kenyon Drake and, maybe Tony Pollard in there. I would throw Tony Pollard, who's down here. That's going to be where I would look at this. Maybe throw him in that area. Alexander Mattison over there. I think he can get you 8, 9, maybe 10 fantasy points. Get a big run or a touchdown could happen. It's very possible, though, that nothing happens and he just doesn't do well, or Kirk Cousins focuses on the passing game, or they randomly bring in another running back, to spell him and he gets the touchdown. CJ Ham comes into mind, actually. Number 4, we got Alvin Kamara. Drops a spot, has a really good matchup, or a decent matchup, rather, against New England. We talked about Jameis Winston before. It's a tough matchup for quarterbacks, so I would expect Alvin Kamara to be very involved here, dump offs to him. Even though Jameis is a gunslinger, I think he's going to go for Alvin Kamara a little bit more here this week. So I do like him at number 4, really at number 3, but really at number 4 this week. Aaron Jones at number 5. San Fran is giving up a lot of points to the running back position right now. 7,800. I do like that average number for him, and I do kind of like the 16-point average projection for him. So I'm cool with that. Nick Chubb dropped actually 2 spots from last week, going up against Chicago, and he is 7th. Now, he is a guy who's interesting. I think he's here because even though it's a tough defensive matchup with Jarvis Landry out, I'm telling you, the experts are probably expecting them to run the ball more, get them the ball in the pass game more, whether it's Kareem Hunt or Nick Chubb. The problem is it could be either or this week with Kareem Hunt or Nick Chubb. Chicago is absolutely going to try to focus in on stopping that run, so just be careful with that. Because when it comes to the passing game, even though both of them can do it, I feel like they use Kareem Hunt in that aspect more. But trends like that can always change game to game. And if you have him in normal lineups, like in your normal fantasy league, you're going to be starting him. I would just probably be staying away from him at the 7,600 mark in DraftKings. Austin Eckler has a great spot against Kansas City. I think he should be higher. And if I had my say, Austin Eckler would be maybe above Nick Chubb, maybe even Aaron Jones. But no, I don't think Aaron Jones, but definitely above Nick Chubb. I would have him at really number 6 if I was doing my personal rankings. 23rd against run is the Kansas City Chiefs. Their defense has not played up to par for the most part. I mean, they're bottom categories. Now, granted, they had 2 tough matchups against really good offenses, especially Baltimore last week played phenomenal in that game. But at 7,200, it's a little high, but it's a lot lower than these other guys. I mean, to me, in terms of top 8, top 7 value, he's one of the top values on the board for that top tier running back if you want in a DFS lineup. At number 8, we got Najee Harris here, going up against Cincinnati. As I mentioned before with Ben, I fully expect this game to be very pass heavy. Maybe from both sides, but mainly from Pittsburgh's side. With the line just not good, with Deontay Johnson out, I could totally see Najee Harris having a huge receptions game. So if you have PPR leagues and all that stuff, Najee Harris, to me, has much more value. And I would probably have him and Eckler over Nick Chubb on a full point PPR and half point PPR for that matter, even though this is half point PPR. Jonathan Taylor, by the way, 6,700, Najee Harris, 6,600. Those are good values, all right? Compared to the other ones, you're talking about a 2,000 difference between Najee and Derrick Henry. For 2,000, I think Najee's a fantastic value. I'm going to be honest. I think the receiving game is going to have him on point. Like I said, DFS is generally full point PPR, so that would definitely help out Najee Harris this week. Jonathan Taylor, that's where my concern is with Nyheim Hines. Carson Wentz is playing. I believe Paris Campbell might be good, but he's limited right now. Michael Pittman, I think we're still waiting 100% on. It could be a mess. It could be a good game. So I think this is very hit or miss. Divisional games can get tricky. I'd probably stay away from him in DFS personally, but if you have him in your lineups, he's a good match there at number 9. Also, he's one of our top risers this week, so the experts believe that he is one of the top guys in the top 10 at least, that you should have in your lineups, as well as Derrick Henry compared to last week. At number 10, we got Joe Mixon. Down 3 spots. I'm not surprised. Listen, Joe Mixon will have that boom week for you, and then you pretty much guarantee that he's not going to do that the next week. So, unfortunately for us, that means this is a wild card week because he was down last week in that matchup. And this is going against Pittsburgh, who is giving up the 5th fewest points to running backs right now. So, I personally would be kind of fading out Joe Mixon in any tournament plays and any bets and stuff like that. I wouldn't really rely on that. Even in prop bets, I'm not going to be targeting that. Ezekiel Elliott at number 11. He did well last week. My concern is that Tony Pollard is better than him. I mean, and I'm not saying that as a Washington fan trying to hate on Zeke. I really am not. It's just Tony Pollard's looked more explosive. The offense seems to work more when Tony Pollard is on the field. Ezekiel Elliott was benefiting from Tony Pollard being on the field with him at the same time. I think that scheme will continue. Both guys could have a really good game here against Philly. They are giving up the 12th fewest points to the running back position, but again, divisional games and a high-powered offense like the Cowboys, who are coming off a really good win. I just think that this could be a really upset, I guess, if you will, if you're going to say it's an upset for Dallas to go into Philadelphia, to host Philadelphia, beat them at home. Saquon at number 12. This is probably one of the biggest jumps of the week. Obviously, he's getting healthier, so he jumps up 10 spots. And of course, he's going up against Atlanta, who's giving up a lot of points to pretty much every position. 6,500 guys. I love Saquon this week. I'm putting him in some of my lineups. I'm going to do some bets for him, and I'm going to get him involved this week. I think he goes off against the Falcons. Number 13, we have Chris Carson, who I'm actually surprised he dropped a little bit. I would personally switch Chris Carson and Saquon Barkley, Joe Mixon, and Ezekiel Elliott. So if I had my say, Saquon would be 10, Chris Carson would be 11, Joe Mixon would be 12, and Ezekiel Elliott would be 13. And I actually might flip those two too if I did that. Either way, I love the Chris Carson matchup. The experts are down on him, but only by a spot. He's still a top 12, a top 13, top 14 player. So the value's still there. You got to put him in your lineups, especially against Minnesota. That could end up being a shootout. Excuse me. It could end up being a shootout. The problem with Chris Carson was the yards. He got in the end zone twice last week, and that was great. But he was not rushing actually very well. So I'm really curious to see how this is going to go up with that Minnesota defensive line starting to step up with the Hunter back against that, Seattle Seahawks revamped line that, you can argue is playing well or not well. It does concern me regardless for Chris Carson's yards, but I do think that, I think he can get involved a little bit more here, but he may be more touchdown dependent, even in a really good matchup. I'm just hoping that the volume is there because of the matchup. Same thing for Antonio Gibson. Tough matchup, but like I said before, he was averaging 5.3 yards last week. The thing with Gibson is not his ability. We all know he can do it. The problem is the offensive coordinator getting him the ball. They want to get Terry McLaurin the ball. They focused in on him super hard last week. I think it was like 14 targets, 11 catches for him. Gibson needs more targets in the pass game, but with J.D. McKissick, that could be a problem. And Scott Turner I don't think still understands how to use J.D. McKissick and Gibson the right way together. So that's a problem for me as well. I'm hoping I'm wrong. 5,900 is a good price for him. And I would say be patient with Gibson. Don't give up on him because that regression will come back. Like he will start to have those boom games, even with J.D. McKissick there. If the game script is working and he's rushing well, they're going to give him the ball and continue to give him the ball. It's when they fall behind that you see a little bit more J.D. McKissick. And with this kind of game, it could very well happen. So just keep that in mind. But I wouldn't be surprised if he has a good game, maybe 60 yards and get in the end zone. So that would give you a good 12 to 13 fantasy points, depending on, what format you're going with here. David Montgomery is another guy dropping just a tick here at number 15. He goes up against Cleveland, who's given up the 6th fewest points to running backs. It's a tough matchup, but with Justin Fields here, it's probably even harder with Justin Fields, right? So David Montgomery, I have hope, mainly because of what they might do with Justin Fields in the run game. Having him run can absolutely open it up for David Montgomery. So even though it's a tough matchup, and you're maybe thinking, well, should I go with like Clyde Edwards-Helaire or, Chase Edmonds over David Montgomery? Listen, I'm not going to freak out. I mean, if you want to try to go with the Chase Edmonds over David Montgomery, go for it. But I can tell you right now, Chase Edmonds is capping out at like 10, 11 fantasy points a week. This average is actually somewhat generous for Chase Edmonds right now. So David Montgomery, I'm telling you, Justin Fields will open it up. Even if Cleveland is destroying the quarterback, they might hyper focus. If Fields can get a decent run right off the bat, it could be a very good day for David Montgomery. But that said, it is a risky play. At 6,100, I don't like it for DraftKings. I'd rather go a little bit lower here. Clyde Edwards-Helaire at the price, especially at 4,800, and Tyson Williams at 58, Chase Edmonds at 57. I do like them better for DFS. But I would understand in your season long if you're going to stick with David Montgomery over like a Damian Harris or Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I get it. DeAndre Swift. Now, I haven't checked the injury report since we started the show here. I should really just look at that real quick and just figure out what exactly we are looking at injury-wise for DeAndre Swift. So let me just bring that up real quick. So we'll bring up the Sports Edge, right? So we'll just double-check things before we get too involved here. So note on T. Higgins, he is out. Henderson not expected to play, so we knew that one. Cook, we were not expected to play. We knew that one too, right? Andre Swift. Is there anything about him? Now, I thought I heard that he might end up playing, but I could be totally wrong. Let's see, DeAndre Swift. So he's still questionable. Nothing yet, it looks like. So we're still kind of waiting to see on DeAndre Swift. It could be an interesting play if he's available. I do love the matchup. I mean, Baltimore is a sneaky rank for them right now. 22nd against the run. I mean, could be that or it could not. Like DeAndre Swift, the Lions, I don't think are going to run on Baltimore the way other teams have been able to. But I could be wrong. I mean, listen, Baltimore is not like the old school Ray Lewis led and Ed Reed led where they were like the number one running defense every single week. They're good, but are they that same level of elite? I don't think so. So if they're ranked in 22nd right now, it's only a 2-week sample. But at 5,800, I don't hate the price. It's just Detroit's Detroit. So there's any given Sunday that they can get destroyed. And right now that game is a 7.5 point spread rather. So be mindful of what you're going to go through here. Miles Sanders at 17 against Dallas. Listen, Dallas's defense played well last week. Let's see if they can do it again. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is actually kind of surprising on how non-productive he's been this year, considering the offense that he's on and so forth. This should be a spot where he should be able to bounce back. 29th against the run is the Los Angeles Chargers right now. Antonio Gibson had a pretty solid week 1 against them outside of the fumble. So Dallas Cowboys, obviously Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott really ran well against them. I kind of like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, man. 4,800 on DraftKings. I really love that. For the matchup value, for where they're ranking him, he dropped 2 spots, so it's not too crazy. But at number 18, he's still a top 20 back. Experts are projecting him to beat this week. So I would definitely get him in your lineups for a really, really nice value option. Damian Harris at number 19, I don't love as much against New Orleans this week. Not going to lie. I think they're going to key in on that run and force Mac Jones to pass with Marshawn Lattimore being back, and this could be a tough spot for Harris. Now, he can do things in spite of that. Obviously, if you have him in your matchup and you need to choose between, say, him and a Chase Edmonds and even Myles Gaskin, maybe James Robinson, outside of Myles Gaskin, the next 3 guys, I would probably put ahead of Damian Harris this week, personally. Tyson Williams, 31st against the run is the Detroit Lions right now. I love him this week. I think you put him in your lineups. The only thing that could hold him back, just keep in mind, could be like Lat Murray or someone from the running back position that they signed. So just be careful about that if you're going to go with Tyson Williams. The matchup's fantastic, but I am worried that he might not get the volume that he maybe got the first couple weeks. Chase Edmonds at number 21. I actually really love this for this matchup here. Chase Edmonds is one of my sleepers of the week. I think he's going to go over that 10 to 11. And even though I said there's a cap on him the way he's been running, this might be a week where DeAndre Hopkins, even though he's playing, might be a little slowed up. I'm not saying he's not going to go off, but at the same time, maybe Kyler Murray has to keep moving and looking for other guys. Now he has a lot of receivers, and Max Williams stepped up last week. But I think this week can be a running back week, and Chase Edmonds could be the guy that might benefit. I'm just hoping that James Conner doesn't exactly steal any of that production in a meaningful. Myles Gaskin, I'm out on this week. I'm pretty much out on every Miami Dolphin with Jacoby Brissett. Until I know how this offense is really going to run with that, I'm nowhere near that. James Robinson, listen, he went up in the rankings, ironically. He was 29th last week, 23rd this week. Until Urban Meyer starts using him correctly, this is a good spot for him. And honestly, I would probably start anyone above him here, outside of Myles Gaskin over James Robinson. Below him, I would also go with Javonte Williams or Melvin Gordon even against the Jets. And then maybe even Kenyon Drake if I had to, especially with Jacoby Brissett as quarterback. So Kareem Hunt, 24. Same thing with Chubb as we said before. Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams coming at 25 and 27. Choose your maker there, I guess. It could be a matchup where they are, heavy favorites, if you will. And I believe if I'm looking down at the ranking, let's just see what the spread is for this game. Oh yeah, Broncos are heavy favorites at -10 right now. So I don't know. I don't know who's going to be the guys to step up here. Teddy could check down, so it could be one of these guys, could be both. But I do like the plays over like a Myles Gaskin this week, and even potentially a James Robinson. So I would be probably more comfortable playing Melvin Gordon or Javonte Williams over James Robinson. Mike Davis, if you guys didn't hear the news, it sounds like that the Falcons are going to be doing a 60-40 split between Mike Davis and Cordero Patterson. Patterson had a monster week last week. Mike Davis had a decent week too. But against the Giants, this could be a huge scoring game, or the Falcons can completely flutter out. I don't expect the Giants to be dominating this game, so most likely they will. But if they don't and the Giants do destroy them, I'm kind of hesitant about Mike Davis. And in a way, I would probably maybe lean Cordero just because if they're running for their lives and Matt Ryan has to dump it down, that may be a really good spot for, we saw J.D. McKissick go off against that Giants team from the receiving end. Well, that in this offense would be Cordero Patterson. And you better believe they're already talking about the 60-40 split. They already committed that, hey, this is going to be how it is the whole season. You better believe that Cordero Patterson is going to get the receptions today. I wouldn't be surprised if he steals the volume. So even though Mike Davis is at number 26, and I believe Cordero Patterson is, I think I have him, 47 they had him at. All right, and this is the experts' rankings. This is where he was going into it at about 7:30 this morning. So take that for what it's worth. I mean, they have Mike Davis as a top 26 guy. To be honest with you, I would drop him to the mid-30s, like 35, 36, and then bump up Cordero Patterson, to be quite honest with you. Kenyon Drake's the last guy on this list that's, in my opinion, relevant outside of Devin Singletary and Tony Pollard down here, of course, mentioned and discussed before. Kenyon Drake should be the guy in Las Vegas. Jacoby Brissett's the quarterback. We don't know how this is going to go. Miami's defense is still pretty good. They haven't been shut down against the run this year, so I think this could be a really interesting spot for Kenyon Drake. And Derek Carr can also dump it to him. He brings abilities from both sides. So I do like Kenyon Drake a little higher. Obviously, he's one of our risers of the week. 12-spot rise from last week. So just keep that in mind. Listen, no Tua Tagovailoa changes this matchup, in my opinion. So I do like Kenyon Drake. Now, Leonard Fournette is kind of the last one here that I want to talk about because of Tampa. I am a little worried about starting any Tampa running backs this week. It's a crapshoot right now. Ronald Jones is apparently in the doghouse, which means that he'll probably be the one to rush for 100 yards today, right? Like, if we've known anything from the last 2 years, that's kind of like a trend, right? So I think that I'm going to fade Leonard Fournette. I'm going to focus on Chris Godwin, Scotty Miller, and Rob Gronkowski. Now, I'm not going to say I'm going to put Scotty Miller in regular lineups. Maybe a sleeper DFS play if you need a low-value receiver. He's probably like worth minimum, I would say, this week. Probably, whatever. So I think that's a good matchup there for maybe those guys. Rob Gronkowski, I think, should have a big week with this type of game. That being said, it's the Rams defense, and it's a tough matchup. These are two Super Bowl contender type teams that have high-powered offenses and high-powered defenses. It's going to be a great matchup. I'm really excited for that one. But I am fading Leonard Fournette. Devin Singletary, I do like against Washington. Again, if they don't step up, Devin Singletary could be the recipient of a good week, not a solid week. I don't think he's going to have more than 10, 11 points unless he gets a touchdown early, which he did get a pretty big touchdown run last week. And then, of course, they went away from him. If Josh Allen struggles, by the way, early on in this game, and Washington's defense is getting going, I do expect him to run the ball because teams have been able to run the ball in Washington this week. I mean, we let up big runs, and then we kind of bend, don't break in terms of the red zone. But I think Devin Singletary can have a pretty big game here. The only thing that could be is that Zach Moss might vulture some carries. I'm taking a risk on him in my one league, so I kind of like the value here at 4,900. against a team who, even though they're fourth against the run, it just feels like, you know what? Like they can if they bend don't break, so they do let up some yards. And if they completely fall apart today, then this could be a big running game day, especially if Josh Allen is still struggling. Jamal Williams, I like at 31. I like him even more if DeAndre Swift is officially out. 32, Tony Pollard. Even with Zeke, I just think that the Cowboys, they know, like, Tony Pollard needs more carries. I feel like Jerry Jones is like, you better give him more time, right? You know? And I wouldn't be surprised if, like, they just eat the contract and do what they have to do with Zeke, and he plays more of a fullback role that, you know, you can utilize a 2 running back system all year, and you can kind of flip that if there's, you know, 2 running backs in the game, right? Other than that, Trey Sermon should be the starter, guys. He was at 34 in the rankings before, after the news this morning. This is kind of where they have him. I kind of agree with this. We don't know what we're going to get with Trey Sermon. They signed that, I think Jaquez Patrick was his name. And if I'm not mistaken, Kerryon Johnson was activated today for the Niners as well. So wouldn't be surprised if Kerryon Johnson just comes in and vultures a touchdown or something of that nature. Nyheim Hines, I don't hate as a really deep, desperate play here. And I disagree with J.D. McKissick. I think he should be higher in the rankings. I think I would have him maybe at 31. Or no, I'd probably put him below Tony Pollard at 33. I think maybe they're thinking of the inconsistency against a tough defense in a spot where Buffalo could really smash them. Maybe that's what their thinking is. Obviously, Darrell Henderson is expected to be out, so that's why he's dropped in the rankings this week. Michael Carter and Ty Johnson are the Jets guys. And then, of course, Sony Michel down here. By the way, if Darrell Henderson is officially out, I'm totally cool with you firing off Sony Michel, putting him in DFS lineups, 4,900. Tampa Bay Buccaneers have been giving up rushing yards, and I would absolutely expect him to get more than 6 fantasy points this week. And then Kenny Gainwell, I wouldn't go near that. Cordero Patterson, I'm telling you, I like that. I think he's the guy this week, and they have him really low. I know they're like, you know, probably being cautious because we've seen this from Cordero before, but in the game script, the way that this game can go, just makes a lot of sense. When they saw what probably J.D. McKissick could do last week against the Giants, why wouldn't they do this with Cordero Patterson? Arthur Smith's a pretty smart guy, so I think he'll get that going. A.J. Dillon, I'm not starting him anywhere in my lineups. And then this is kind of the rest of it. Again, Alexander Mattison was down here. He most likely will bump up if Dalvin Cook is, and if and when he is designated to be out for today's game. Elijah Mitchell, by the way, guys, doubtful. Josh Jacobs is out, actually. Tevin Coleman is also out for the Jets. Moving right along here, guys, we have Tyreek Hill at number 1 for the wide receivers. Davante Adams at number 2. Even though Rodgers did fall in the rankings, I mean, it's Davante Adams, and I think the secondary isn't as good as San Francisco is looking at right now. I mean, they didn't play exactly the best offenses outside, although I will say Eagles look so much better than I thought they would. But Detroit in week 1, Eagles in week 2, you know, this is more of an offense that has a couple other weapons and a quarterback that can pass it all over the place. So I'm curious to see how San Fran's going to be able to match up when there's multiple weapons to utilize. Stephon Diggs comes in at number 3. In my opinion, he should be number 1 with a really good matchup and the way that the Washington secondary has played. I mean, Kendall Fuller has been Swiss cheese. William Jackson got burnt in the Thursday night game, but in the week 1 game, he actually didn't play too bad, in my opinion. And I think they need to get Cam Curl more involved in the secondary for Washington. If Landon Collins is getting a little more time, there could be some coverage gaps that Stephon Diggs will absolutely take advantage of. I do expect Stephon Diggs to have a pretty big game this week. I would have him at number 1 in the rankings. And at 7,600, he's absolutely my top DFS play if you're going to be talking about these other guys. Now, granted, we'll go into this. DeAndre Hopkins, he's questionable. Most likely he's going to play. I'm not even going to worry about it. He usually plays. So unless we see a curveball come out of left field and something aggravated in the pre-game warm-ups, DeAndre Hopkins should be good to go. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, 5 and 6 respectively. I just think that regression to the mean is going to happen today, and I think that DK Metcalf is going to be the one to go off over Tyler Lockett. Remember, Tyler Lockett has those amazing games where he has like 50 fantasy points and this and that, and he'll have another good game for 17 and 18 points. Then we get to the next game and have like 0 points, right? Teams will key in on him. Okay, we're going to go to DK's side. Okay, we're going to give the ball to Chris Carson. Okay, so Granted, this is a smash spot matchup for them. DK and Tyler can both go up. I'm going to kind of put my money on DK for the $100 less on DraftKings, though, if I was going to pair him and Russell Wilson in a lineup, or just, single play them, whatever. But I just like DK a little bit over, and so do the experts. Granted, Tyler Lockett's been down in the rankings. Now he's getting his deserved respect, and I think number 6 is perfect for him. Calvin Ridley. Let's talk about Calvin Ridley for a second. All right, this is the part of the show where I'm going to be bringing up the screen for a second. All right, I got my coffee going. Right, we got coffee here. Don't worry, this is coffee. It's not alcohol. Calvin Ridley. I tweeted out about this months ago, saying when Julio Jones got traded, or a couple months ago when he got traded, I said to myself, and I kind of tweeted this out, Calvin Ridley's production's going down the crapper. And I had people harassing me, showing me numbers from last year where his stats were higher with Julio out and so forth. I've had Calvin Ridley, and then the year before I had Julio Jones, okay? Now, last year, if you were a Calvin Ridley owner, you know what I'm referring to here when I tell you guys that even though he had production in some of those games, overall numbers from a week-to-week perspective were not as good. There were so many weeks that he became the decoy that I'm not even trying to announce his first name, but Zacchaeus, Alameda Zacchaeus, right? And Russell Gage were the guys getting these like weird, decent games and stuff like that, to the point where Zacchaeus was rostered and starting for people going into a playoff run at one point. All right. I noticed in those games, even though there was games that he did do really well, he always kind of let you down when you needed him. Really good matchup in a really good spot, right? I could be wrong, and maybe this is the week that he proves me wrong. I'm hoping that I'm right, or hoping that I'm wrong, but I'm just going to tell you guys right now, when I'm looking at Calvin Ridley at number 7 against the Giants and most likely going to have James Bradbury on him, I don't love it. I don't love it at all. I know Terry went off against him, and Calvin Ridley is, in my opinion, the same level talent. Injuries can happen and so forth, and that is always a concern with Calvin Ridley, getting a little nicked up and so forth. I just don't believe in Calvin Ridley this year, and so far, it's proven to be right. He's proven me right to a degree. So I'm hoping I'm wrong. I'm hoping he goes off for you guys. Obviously, if you have him, he was most likely maybe your wide receiver 1. Hopefully, listen, if you were able to get him as a wide receiver 2, good rats. But most likely, he's a wide receiver 1, so you're not going to sit him. But I'm telling you right now, I think the experts, and I'm not calling any of them out on this, but I think they're a little high to think that Cooper Kupp is below Calvin Ridley in the rankings, especially, I understand it's Tampa Bay. I understand the scheme could be this and that. But Tampa Bay is, again, nicked up in the secondary, and it's showing. They are giving up the second most points to wide receivers. Second most for one of the top defenses in the NFL right now. Cooper Kupp, I would absolutely, with the way that he has a rapport with Stafford, he would be in my lineup over Calvin Ridley. And I don't even think I don't even think it's close, to be honest with you. For the same DFS value, it's kind of where I got him there as well. And so we'll kind of go with that one, right? Number 9, Justin Jefferson. CD Lamb here at number 10. CD up 2 spots. He's been fantastic. You know what? F out of here with this first, against the pass. Realistically, both teams that they faced weren't exactly in best state. Falcons it's probably one of the worst teams in the league this year. Last week, I think they played San Francisco. Jimmy Garoppolo isn't exactly a heater, right? And he's a good quarterback. I'm not hating on Jimmy, but the high-powered offense of the Cowboys right now is much more effective, in my opinion, than the high-powered offense, or just the offense, I would say, for San Francisco. So CD Lamb, I like him at the number 10 spot, even if it's going up against the toughest quote-unquote secondary. I still like him there in that spot. Keenan Allen. We like Justin Herbert in this matchup, guys. We do like Keenan Allen also. I love Austin Eckler in this matchup overall, though. Keenan Allen could be a little tougher matchup this week. But, again, you're not going to not start him. He did drop 4 spots, so the experts do think it's going to be maybe a little bit of a down week for him. And that's the same with A.J. Brown. This one doesn't surprise me. The passing game just hasn't looked right. Ryan Tannehill just hasn't looked great. I mean, he's looked okay. He's had some decent plays and all that stuff, but he hasn't looked like this team doesn't look like a playoff offense that would dominate the way they were last year, right? And you would think they would be with Julio there now. I think losing Jonnu Smith is more of a loss than they thought, and especially now that Anthony Firkser is out too. I think that's a bigger loss than they really thought, right? And so I just don't think that he's going to be dropping that much, though. I really like him in the matchup. Granted, if Xavier Rhodes is going, he's going to have the matchup here. Maybe that's why he's dropped a little bit. But at his value, his price at DFS is 6,500, and most likely as a wide receiver 2, maybe a wide receiver 1 in your matchups. You should have no hesitation playing him, especially with Carson Wentz a little banged up. Just don't know what's going to happen in that game. It could be Tennessee domination all day in that Indy matchup. DJ Moore, of course, played. Mari Cooper, probable. We're still waiting to hear on that. I'm not sure if that has been updated yet. I'm not 100% sure, but it sounds like he's probably going. If he's probable, I'm going to expect he's going unless something crazy happens. Kind of same analysis with him and CeeDee Lamb. Chris Godwin, we talked about him before. I do like him in this matchup. I like him a little bit more than Mike Evans. I have to think that Mike Evans might see Jalen Ramsey coverage. But to be quite honest with you, I don't know how they're going to do that. They're going to keep him on one side or they're going to make him follow. My theory is they were going to probably keep him on both sides, but we just don't know if he's going to be shadowed. Which receiver is essentially going to be shadowed by Jalen Ramsey. So there's a little bit of a question mark there. But if you got Chris Godwin, he's in a good matchup and a good DFS price here at 6,100. Adam Thielen against Seattle. Seattle's defense has actually been pretty good against the pass, but I think this could end up being a shootout, especially with Dalvin Cook out. This could be a lot more passing going down if Madison doesn't get it going. And so Adam Thielen at number 16 seems about right, actually, with the kind of matchup in the situation itself. Terry at 17 actually kind of surprises me. I understand Buffalo's defense is good, and I understand that Washington's defense hasn't been playing well, but I've seen nothing to suggest that Taylor Heineke won't find a way to get Terry McLaurin the ball, and they won't try to force feed it to him unless they go back to their week 1 strategy, which they saw didn't exactly work, right? Clearly, when Terry gets 11, 10 targets, they win games, or at least they are close in those games. I think if I actually looked at the stats, it's going to be more that they win those games. That they need to get this guy more involved. He is scratching the surface of a top 15, top 12 wide receiver right now, and I think he's going to continue that. His price is a little high, though. I would probably fade him in DFS lineups, but if you have him in your normal fantasy lineups, I'm cool with him in there. He's probably your wide receiver 1 or I would say probably wide receiver 2 for most people. So you're probably going to have him in your lineup. Deebo Samuel, again, tough defense against Green Bay here. We talked about Jimmy before. Deebo is an interesting play here. He actually goes up 2 spots. I'm not a huge fan of him this week, but he's been dominating the first 2 weeks, so you're not going to take him out of your lineups, especially if Brandon Ayuk continues to be in the doghouse and the rotation of running backs that they now have in there. I think they're going to have to lean on Deebo and George Kittle a little bit today. At 19, we got Allen Robinson going up against Cleveland. Listen, this is a risk play because we don't know how exactly Justin Fields is going to produce against a better defense in Cleveland. I'd be a little hesitant, and so are the experts, as Allen Robinson drops 6 spots in this matchup, in spite of probably a better quarterback coming in, someone who is not quite acclimated to the NFL yet and is going up against a really tough team. At number 20, Mike Evans. Same thing with Chris Godwin. We don't know what Jalen Ramsey, and I would guess the trend here with Mike Evans is most likely the experts believe, hey, had a pretty big boom game last week. You probably have a flutter this week. It's kind of that trend with Mike Evans. It's like every other week, it seems like with him. Julio Jones at 21. I think it's more about they haven't gotten, him more involved enough yet. And maybe him and Ryan Tannehill just don't have that connection yet. But again, great matchup for Tennessee. It's a good play this week. He's up 4 spots for the experts. Cortland Sutton getting himself back up to elite status after getting hurt last year in week 1 and being out for the whole fantasy season. I know this because it hurt my team so much. He was my keeper. They get the Jets this week, who are really tough against against the wide receiver position. But at the same time, man, the experts love him. He's up 7 spots this week. Really think he's going to produce, and I do too. I love Cortland Sutton. Mike Williams, rather. Mike Williams is the most interesting guy in the world because every time we want to love Mike Williams because he's going off, flutters out, right? Puts up literally a donut half the time. Against Kansas City, he's playing really well right now. He's had back-to-back 20-point games, I believe in a full-point PPR and near that in a half-point PPR. He's up 7 spots, so the experts love him as well. And his price is pretty good, but I would probably go 6,000 more for Courtland Sutton against. If Zach Wilson turns the ball over the way he did last week, definitely I thought Courtland Sutton. Instead, this matchup might be more of a tougher battle, but it could also be a shootout at the end of the day. Kansas City secondary isn't, it isn't locked down, so it's beatable. But at the same time, it's really just the receiver himself that I just don't trust. And I'm going to continue to feel that way, even though the experts love him. So you can kind of definitely put him in your DFS lineups if you want. Robert Woods, though, is the guy that I really like down here. 5,700 on DraftKings, guys. He's going up against Tampa Bay, as we mentioned, with Kupp, 30th against wide receivers. Robert Woods hasn't been the benefactor, if you will, of Matthew Stafford so far. We all know it's been Cooper Kupp in the first 2 weeks. This is a week that I think he'd get more involved. I think Tampa's going to really try to game plan against Cooper Kupp, and that's going to allow Robert Woods to break out and have a good game. Tyler Higbee could be a little bit more questionable for me, especially with Darrell Henderson out. I'm just a little bit worried about the middle with Devin White and company there. I don't want to have to risk it on Tyler Higbee, if you will. So I think Robert Woods is the smash play in this one. And at 24th, at 5,700 on DraftKings, I think he might be one of my sleepers of the week to really go off this week. Jamar Chase. T. Higgins is out. They are going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers, who have been letting up points to wide receivers. Joe Burrow dropped in our rankings, which is interesting, but I do think he's going to get Jamar Chase the ball. I don't know if he's going to score this week, but I do think he's going to have a pretty big game, and Joe Burrow is going to heavily go to him, I think, a little bit more. I also do like Tyler Boyd in this matchup as well. Comes in at number 32. He's up 4 spots. I really like that matchup for them. So if you have those Cincy receivers with T. Higgins out, Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, put him in your lineups. Joe Burrow, I'm personally okay with him. The experts seem to be a little down on him, so just keep that in mind. And then Chase Claypool, who is now the starting receiver essentially with Juju, with Deontay Johnson out. He is a good play at 26. I think he'll go off in this game. I'm hoping he does. But since his defense has been sneaky good, guys, so just be careful of that. I wouldn't be listen. I want to say since he's going to come in and just dominate Pittsburgh, but it never happens, right? Every time that we would think it doesn't happen, right? So I'm going to avoid that kind of mentality for this game and assume that maybe it'll be more of a shootout. So I do like Chase Claypool there at 26. Marquise Brown, I don't care if he's going up against Detroit and they're 12th against the pass for wide receivers right now. Marquise Brown has been actually popping off the first couple of weeks, and I really like him this week again. Sterling Shepard, I don't hate him against Atlanta. Again, A.J. Terrell is out. So whether that means a good game for Kenny Golladay or Sterling Shepard, I have no idea. Could be Darius Slayton that steps in and takes the yardage. But I do have hope for the wide receivers in the pass game. And Daniel Jones, obviously, big spike in the rankings this week, so the experts love him. The experts seem to love Sterling Shepard as well, with a 10-point spike after playing a pretty solid game against Washington in week. Juju falls down here at 29, and I just think it's kind of funny that Juju's supposed to be the number 1, and Deontay Johnson has been above him in the rankings every week, and now Chase Claypool is above him in the rankings every week. And this guy was kind of supposed to quote unquote be their number 1. I think Juju's a punk. I don't like him. That said, I don't hate the matchup with Deontay Johnson out. I think he actually could have a good game. But 6,000, I don't like him. I would probably be fading him from DraftKings or fantasy lineups. Now, FanDuel might have a better ranking from DK lineups. I'm definitely fading him. Devontae Smith at 30, who bumps up 3 spots. Great value, by the way. 5,300, 26. I love Devontae Smith as a sleeper this week. I mean, listen, I have no reason to believe that the Cowboys defense is going to be good just because Justin Herbert had a somewhat decently bad game. He had a good game, but he made some mistakes, and the refs seemed to help them out just a little bit there in Dallas last week. I'd be curious if it's going to happen again this week. Devontae Smith, I really like the idea of him just burning, I'm not saying he's going to burn Trayvon Diggs, but I'm really excited for the matchup because these are former college teammates that are going to be going up against each other. So I'm really curious to see how this matchup plays out, but I like Devontae Smith. Tyler Boyd, we already talked about. I love him. Marvin Jones, probably one of the biggest value picks of the week. His floor is pretty good right now. I mean, he is easily Trevor Lawrence's most reliable receiver. So, and I don't think that's going to change throughout the year. DJ Chark, I don't think that's it. He might step up later on, but clearly Marvin Jones is the receiver to own. And I am proud to say that I drafted him in my first year dynasty league this year in like the third to last round, knowing like this guy is going to be that safety blanket for Trevor. And it's starting to turn out that way. Oh, by the way, he has a fantastic price, as does Tyler Boyd. DraftKings. Kenny Golladay down to 34. I think this is more because of the injury tag. He might be higher up in these rankings if there wasn't an injury tag on him. But he is expected to play, by the way. And then Rondale Moore, probably one of the biggest spikes of last week, a 16-point rise on him. Also happy to say I also drafted him in my Dynasty League, and I had him in my lineup last week. I also have Kyler Murray, so that was a hell of a fun game, even though I lost because of Cooper Kupp and pretty much every single person that went off on my opponent's team. Michael Pittman, good matchup. Again, this matchup can be very sloppy, though. Buyer beware. Carson Wentz can get hurt after the first play, and that's probably why he's down so much in the rankings. I would assume he would have been like a top 30 option, even a little higher if Carson Wentz was healthy or there was consistency there. DJ Chark, we talked about it. Marvin Jones is the guy to have, but it's a decent matchup against Arizona. I am a little worried that this number is going to be very deceiving, and Arizona is going to bring pressure, and it's going to be a somewhat tough day for Trevor Lawrence. But I could be wrong. And then rounding out the rest of the top 40, if you will, is Corey Davis at 15 and Cole Beasley at 40. I'm sorry, at 39 and then 40. Listen, if you guys are down there, I would probably go with these rankings if I were them. Tim Patrick, I'd love to spike up for him. I do like his value. Kobe Myers, listen, this is a tough week for New Orleans. I'm probably fading the passing game in New England, even though I have a ton of them in my Dynasty League. Jalen Waddle, this is all about the quarterback. Tua being out completely destroys the value this week for Jalen Waddle. Not that he can't go off, but it's probably much less unlikely unless they really scheme it to him, which they could very well do. And then Darnell Mooney, I'm assuming this is because of injury, but I actually kind of like him this week. Definitely because of Justin Fields, I'm assuming also that this is going to be a little tough. So then you got Laviska Shenault and Odell Beckham. I didn't even have the ranking because this was kind of like post the news of Odell Beckham. But it's a good matchup. He is a starting receiver. I don't know how healthy he's going to be, how much snap percentage he's going to get. Again, I think we talked about this. Really, I'm more of a kind of relying on maybe the running backs this week. Honestly, I might I want to rely on Odell Beckham, but you just never know with him coming back from injury against Chicago, who can play good defense. So I'm curious. This is going to be a rookie they're going up against, so it could be turnovers. Who knows? Again, I would probably just stick to the board here. If you're not sure, I would go with any of these guys probably over Odell right now. Maybe except for like Jacoby Myers and Jalen Waddle, right? I would probably start Odell over guys like that for right now. You're desperate. Laviska Shenault getting a big tick down. He has not been the guy that people thought. It's really more Marvin Jones, so he gets a really shot down, but any given Sunday, it could work out. Nelson Aguilar is struggling. He comes in at 49. And then Marquez Callaway is probably one of our lowest droppers of the entire week, or lowest fallers, if you will. Minus 15 when he was 43 last week. Yeah, I mean, that Saints offense is going to be volatile, not like Drew Brees led with Jameis Winston there. Until I see some consistency, I'll probably fade the receivers and stick strictly with Alvin Kamara in that situation. Otherwise, Quintez Cephas is a nice sleeper, by the way, for Detroit. He seems to have a rapport for Jared Goff, so even though he wasn't in those top rankings, he's in 62. I do kind of like him. Dak Pascal has seemed to be the guy for Wentz, so he might be a guy to target if you're going to go for wide receivers for a lot cheaper. Ayuk's been in the doghouse. KJ Osborne, I just don't know if it's just a weekly trend or this is going to be more consistency, so we'll see. And I believe Gabriel Davis is a little nicked up right now. Quez Watkins could give you some really deep sleeper value as well. And then, of course, like we said, Deontay Johnson, T. Higgins, Jarvis Landry, and Antonio Brown all out this week for you. Whew. So, with that all being said, guys, we are getting through this first hour here. A little bit over the first hour now. Tight ends are going to go a little faster. They got Kelsey at number 1, Waller at number 2 in a great matchup. Again, Brissett, I like Waller. TJ Hawkinson is really Jared Goff's guy. I expect them to throw to him a lot this week. Baltimore will try to scheme up, but like I said, man, 32nd against tight ends for them. This could be a pretty good week for Detroit. Quintez Cephas, TJ Hawkinson, I don't hate the moves. George Kittle, Again, this is one of those matchups that George Kittle could be the highlight, and that does scare me a little bit for Debo. But I do think George Kittle will get his. Mark Andrews, I agree with this. Rob Gronkowski, I'd probably bump up a little bit based on what we were referring to before. Kyle Pitts, he got there last week. He was doing a little better. I think if anyone's going to really step up a little bit more this week and maybe get 9-10 points, Kyle Pitts is most likely to do that over Calvin Ridley. I just trust Kyle Pitts over the middle or in the slot compared to James Bradbury over Calvin Ridley. And then rounding out the rest of the tight ends, we got Noah Fant here at number 8, Tyler Higbee at number 9, Logan Thomas dropping 2 spots at number 10 against Buffalo, Dallas Goedert staying in the same spot, going up against Dallas. Ironic. Jared Cook for the Chargers going up against KC. I think this might be the big game for Jared Cook. I'm hoping. But we've seen this before. So if you have one of these other top options, I'd probably go with them. Robert Tonyan, he stepped up last week. This is an area where San Francisco is weak. This could be a very big tight end game for the Green Bay Packers and San Fran. And then, as I mentioned, New England, I'm fading. Austin Hooper, I'm also probably going to fade out of this matchup. It's going to be a little tougher with those linebackers and Roquan Smith. And then Mike Gesicki. Again, no Jacoby Brissett. I'm out on him. Cole Kmet hasn't really shown us anything anyway. Same with Gerald Everett. Same. Conklin. So, there are your rankings for week number 3. We took a little longer on this one. It's the first week, so we're kind of getting the beta test to see, where we're going to, how long it will take us. Obviously, I went into some more detail on some of these games as we were essentially going over it. Those are the kind of things that we'll do every week. I'll try to scale it down a little bit more if you guys find it too long in the future. But this is the week matching. This is this week's matchings, man. We need to get these rankings out. We need to make sure that we are prepared. That, to me, consensus is great because it allows you to see the whole picture, see what everyone's talking about. If you have an expert, you can always compare it to that, right? So it's not like you have to do either or. You can kind of, compare it to the experts. You can search by tight ends and wide receivers, who's the most accurate predictor of that position, and follow those people. Again, if you guys want to see the full directory based on what I put that sheet together for, fantasypros.com, the link's down in the description below. It gives you all the information you need, directories of all the experts and so forth. So now with that being said, let's go into the risers and fallers. This is going to be kind of a very quick rehash because we kind of went through a lot of them here. At the quarterback, we kind of mentioned Daniel Jones, Derek Carr, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Teddy Bridgewater. These are guys that we all like. Justin Fields in his first career start. I'm a fan. Fallers, Jameis Winston, Joe Burrow, and Baker Mayfield were the guys the experts didn't like. Now, while I don't necessarily agree on Joe Burrow, I'm going to respect it, right? So I think that's where we can go with that one. Running backs, you got Saquon Barkley as a riser this week. Obviously, you're going to have him in your lineups, so there's really no surprise there. Kenyon Drake, love that pick. I love him. He's a very low value. Tony Pollard, I think they're going to try to find ways to get him involved, and I wouldn't be surprised if he was the better back. Chase Edmonds, by the way, is a guy who I don't like. And by the way, James Robinson is supposed to be on the faller side, so that's my fault. A little production error there at the end here. But Chase Edmonds is a guy I really like this week. I think the scheme can really benefit him. I'm not saying I love him, but I think he'll get you more than 10 points, maybe less than 15. Fallers, according to the experts, Antonio Gibson, not by much. It was a couple spots. Same with Kareem Hunt. Darrell Henderson, now that we know this is before, we just found out that news before, Darrell Henderson is out. And James Conner is getting a tick down. I actually thought it was kind of interesting that the trend from the experts is James Conner went down in the rankings overall and Chase Edmonds went up, right? So it's kind of like the experts think that Chase Edmonds is going to get a little bit uptick in his volume or looks this week that can benefit him in this matchup. At wide receiver, this is the part of the stream where I'm starting to get a little loopy. I got to start drinking some more coffee again. But the wide receivers for this week, risers, Marquise Brown and Sterling Shepard. If you remember, it was like a double-digit rank rise for them from the experts. I love Marquise Brown this week. I think he's been going off, and I think he'll continue to. The experts also like Sterling Shepard. They like Mike Williams. They love Marvin Jones. He's gone up in the rankings hard. And Rondale Moore, obviously, with a big spike. Even though he's deeper in the rankings, he was a really big spike in a week that maybe DeAndre Hopkins is not exactly 100%. Even so, it just seems like Kyler's going to get Rondale Moore involved. They have a really nice rapport, and he is super explosive. Now, ironically, another trend that I'm seeing fallers, Keenan Allen fell. Now, these guys aren't falling too much outside of Laviska Shenault rankings. It's only kind of a couple spots, like maybe Keenan Allen's going from 11 to 13, right? But Mike Williams is getting that tick up. Keenan Allen, that tick down. A.J. Brown is a little bit of a decrease this week, probably because of the matchup, like we said before. Allen Robinson, a couple factors here. The matchup, also Justin Fields. So those are a couple things to do. Corey Davis, he's the last guy on this list here. Tennessee Titans not on that team anymore. But the Jets with Zach Wilson, this could be a tough one for Corey Davis. So we'll figure that one out as we go. I'm going to stay away from that this week, personally. Tight end, we got Austin Hooper and Gerald Everett as the riser and faller. Again, there wasn't really a lot of trends there. It seemed pretty consistent across the board. Tight end's a tough position to really, get a lot of excitement out of. It's probably one of the least exciting positions in fantasy football. So those are your risers and fallers of the week. According to the experts, kind of powered by me as well. Not powered by me, but analyzed by me. We kind of determined some of those picks there. Good luck with those matchups from your fantasy perspective. Those guys are who the experts thinks are going to, rise up to the occasion or fail miserably. So with that being said, now that we're at this part of the show, we're going to get into the bettings part. This is only going to be about 20 minutes, okay? So this is not going to be as long as the other part. And we already kind of went through DFS as we're going here, right? So realistically, I just wanted to double check and let's see if there's any odds updates here. Because this is essentially a live update of everything to come. So as you can see here, guys, Cardinals, Jaguars. Cardinals are the touchdown and a half favorite here. The over-under at 51, so they do project this to be a higher scoring game. We kind of talked about how that could happen. Marvin Jones, DeAndre Hopkins, Rondale Moore, Chase Edmonds. This could be that kind of game for them. Washington, Buffalo, +7. So Washington's obviously the underdog in this game by a touchdown. 45.5. Listen, I think this can end up being a more defensive touchdown game, or defensive game rather. So this could be more of an under if I was going to choose something, but I'm probably not going to. I'm probably going to fade the actual bets out here. So +7 on that one for Washington. Josh Allen get right game or Washington defense get right game. What's it going to be? I do love Stephon Diggs in this matchup, so you can go with that. Devin Singletary I like, don't love. Gibson I like, don't 100% love. Terry, I think, again, I really like him, but I don't love him in this. It is tough. Logan Thomas, I don't hate either. You kind of like him. Tough matchup, but I think Taylor's going to get some guys involved. Baltimore is, Baltimore is the road favorite going into Detroit. So that's not a surprise there. Detroit, they project them to win by a touchdown and a half. Again, over under 50. That's kind of where I'm looking at here for points, right? If you're talking about DFS. Chargers, 54. So again, high scoring game here for Chargers Chiefs. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. Mike Williams, you're going to start as long as he's in. Austin Eckler in a smash spot, in my opinion. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, this could be a bounce back week for him. He's super cheap on DraftKings, so just keep in mind for that. Could be a really nice value there for you. And then obviously Tyreek Hill, you're going to start, even though it's a tougher matchup for the wide receivers. And Travis Kelce, you're going to start as well. Jared Cook, you can start. Need him. But I do like the production, and clearly Vegas and everyone else likes points in that game as well. Next game, Atlanta, New York. Listen, I don't know why this game is not like 50 plus over under, in my opinion, to be quite honest with you. It still kind of stuns me that it's a 2.5 point spread. All right. And Giants are favored, which makes sense, but I thought they would be at least like a 5 point spread, and you want to bump that up to a 6 point spread. I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I guess they're thinking that Giants just haven't looked as great, but I think their offense looked a lot better than we thought. And I think their defense can step up any time, to be quite honest. Indianapolis Colts, +5 against Tennessee. This is a crapshoot. I'm probably the over-under on 47. Yeah, that kind of seems right. I think this could be a sloppy game, like I've been saying, and I'm kind of staying away from it. Bengals and Pittsburgh. I kind of like Cincinnati as the underdog here. I kind of like it. So I think that's good to go. 43.5, I think that listen, I'm personally going to say that's going to be over. But Cincinnati could kind of I'm probably going to go the over on that, over 43.5. I think they could definitely get the over on that, and I would probably pick Cincy to win it. New Orleans, New England. So New Orleans is +3. I'm surprised. See, this is one that I'm like surprised that it's so low of a spread too. I just don't think it's as close as people think. But granted, I guess maybe they're thinking the defensive play with Mac Jones still not really getting quite there. Could be a struggle for him, and Jameis Winston could struggle. So, all right, I can see that. And the 43, I'd probably bet the under right now if I was going to pick anything, I guess. Chicago, Cleveland, rookie quarterback starting, two good teams or two good defenses and a good offense in Cleveland. Browns are obviously the home favorites. That's pretty standard. I mean, that's pretty standard right there. 45, I think he probably would guess the under, but that's going to be kind of my take on it. New York Jets, 42 over under. Listen, Broncos, again, it's no surprise after 4 picks from Zach Wilson, right, that Broncos are going to be a 10-point favorite. Las Vegas is a 3.5-point favorite. With Miami, I'm surprised that's not a little bit more with the way that the Raiders are playing right now. It seems like Vegas is just not quite convinced that Vegas is quite, ironically enough, right? Vegas is not convinced that the Las Vegas Raiders aren't as good as they seem to be, right? It's just a weird thing. I guess they're just like, listen, we don't want to jinx our hometown team. I don't know, but 3.5 points. I would probably make it. I would probably bet 6.5 on the Raiders. I just don't see Miami winning this. I really don't. 1-point game between Tampa and Los Angeles. That makes total sense. 55 over under. That's a tough one because, like we said, there's a lot of points and a lot of production to be had here, but there's also good defenses. The secondary for Tampa Bay is a problem, so I'm curious how that helps the Rams compared to. All right, Seattle, Minnesota, 2.5-point underdog at home. Okay, for Minnesota. I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with that. But at the same time, I mean, this could very well be a shootout. 54 over under, so that tells you they think this is going to be a shootout. Well, Green Bay, San Francisco, they think it's going to be somewhat of a shootout. I would maybe cautious against the under here, but I do like the. Actually, I'm actually kind of surprised Green Bay is underdog. Okay, I mean, I'm betting Green Bay and I'm betting the under on this game, personally. Philadelphia, Dallas, 3.5-point spread. I would probably bet on Dallas. I put my money on Dallas if I had to. Over under 52, I'm cool with that. Bengals, Jags, 6-point spread. Over under 47. I think that could be a little more higher scoring than we thought. Oh, I'm sorry, we're on the Thursday. Oh, I was going to say, we already did that, guys. We already did those two teams. So, sorry about that. We're going all the way into the Thursday rankings here. But those are the matchups for week 3 here. Those are the odds and so forth. As you can see, there's a lot. Vegas likes a lot of these games for some higher point games. I tend to kind of agree with some of those matchups. There's maybe 1 or 2 that I didn't. So with that, all that being said, that's kind of where we're going to go with it. Now, probably, if there's anyone chilling here that's been watching, that's been waiting, here you're going to finally get into the Parlay Pick of the Week. Now, the Parlay Pick of the Week is a contest that every week we're going to do a new Parlay Pick that's going to be chosen. So I'm going to choose, let's say, a 4-game parlay like I'm going to do this week, or a 4-pick parlay. It's going to be different games. Some weeks it might be same game parlays. Some weeks it might be game spreads. Some games it might be just straight up player props. Some games it might do 8 pick parlays. We're not exactly sure how we're going to do. We'll see how the competition goes. But essentially, this is how you're going to do it. I'm going to provide you guys with my parlay pick scenario. You guys will have to write your pick in the pick combination in the comments below. So you can do it like, I'm going to have it like 1, 2, 3, 4. You'll see it in a second. And then you guys can do 1, 2, 3, 4. You bet the over, under, or whatever the parameters of that specific parlay pick is, right? There's only 1 entry per show. So if I see multiple entries from anyone, the first one I see is the one that I'm going with from the bottom. All entries must be submitted by 1 p.m. Eastern time in order to count unless I specify. So unless we're doing like a 4 p.m. window exclusively, all entries must be submitted by 1 p.m. In order to count. 101, I will not accept it, just so you know. And then subscribers can enter. So if you're subscribed to the channel and you post it multiple weeks, we're going to do one of these a week, as mentioned. after multiple weeks, you guys are going to be able to have, every week you're going to have a chance to get another entry into the contest at the end of the year. Okay? And so all these picks, all these entries are going to be end of the year prizes, if you will. If you win the parlay pick, you get essentially a raffle entry, if you want to think of it that way. That will get you into that contest at the end of the year where we're going to be giving away these prizes. Now, the prize rules. Because this channel is still blossoming and growing, this is the way I figured we're going to do this. So if you guys spread the word, subscribe to the channel, give it a like, share with your friends, and we get 75 subscribers, I'm going to give away an NFL hat of your choice from the NFL.com shop. Okay? Shipped directly to you, whatever one you want, it's yours. We get to 125 subscribers. I'm going to get you guys, whoever wins that one is going to get a replica jersey of their choice, not basically a non-authentic, of their choice for their team, right? And if we get to 200 subscribers, and I actually missed an S in all these. I have subscribers here. So let's talk about 200 subscribers, right? This is me doing this at like 4 o'clock in the morning here, man. I mean, I did it in every single piece of this. It's okay though. Authentic. Look at this. Look at the text here, guys. I can't right now. I am so cracked out. It's not even funny. But hey, I wanted to get you guys these rankings, so it is what it is. But long story short, guys, so if we can get to the 200 subscribers here, you guys will be in the running for an authentic jersey. All 3 of those prizes will be up for grabs if we get to 200 total, as simply put, right? So every week you guys have a chance to get an entry. So the more you do it, the more you come back to the show next week and do the player pick of the week, and you can get it again. You know, let's say you win this week and win next week, have 2 entries. So those that are here now, you guys have an opportunity to get ahead of everyone else. Even though that I'm asking you guys to share with friends and try to go out and, you know, try to build so we can get the authentic jersey into play. Listen, you can do that. Don't worry about like, well, I don't want more people in it. It's okay. You might have more entries. If you're good at this contest, then you'll have more entries, right? If you're not good at the contest, if you can't pick parlays and you don't get them right, then I wouldn't worry about it because you're not going to have an entry. You know? So that's how we're going to do it, guys. That's how we're going to end the show this week. If you guys have any questions, I'm going to have the description and the details in every description in every video moving forward on Sundays. And I'll make sure the spelling's correctly so it doesn't say subscribers and it's subscribers. And then we'll see you guys next week. So with that being said, guys, I just want to check the comment section to see if anyone did pop in, had any questions. All right, so Ray, for my flex in standard scoring, should I start CEH versus Chargers, Kareem Hunt versus Bears, Tony Pollard versus Eagles if Dalvin Cook is out, and added Madison to the list, pick 2 to start? If I had to choose 2, I'm choosing Tony Pollard. And I really, like I said in my rankings, I really like CEH's matchup. I mean, he has a really good matchup this week. It's a little bit of a risk, but in my opinion, if you're going with Tony Pollard and CEH, it might be less of a risk than Trey Sermon, who they just activated Kerryon Johnson. Alexander Madison, he has a really good matchups, but he has failed in these spots before, even with really good matchups. So I would say just be mindful of that if that's the case. And then number 2, so Trey Sermon, Madison, Gaskin, Galladay, PPR. If Galladay goes, I kind of like Galladay today. Against Atlanta, AJ Terrell is out. So if you're here for that, I love Kenny Galladay personally. And then out of those 3 guys, I'm probably fading Gaskin. Trey Sermon, I like. But again, Kerryon Johnson in the backfield does kind of scare me a little bit. I probably would go Madison and Galladay in that situation. All right, so hopefully that helps you guys that are in the chat chilling. Sorry if I just got back to this now. It's something I'm going to do at the end of the show. So I'll make sure to kind of give you guys that note going forward. But this is where we're going to log off for the day. If you guys have any questions, you should follow the channel, subscribe to the channel. You can also follow me at RNFF Designs on Twitter. And you can always DM me or post something, tag me, whatever you want to do if you have any questions when you're watching this after the live show. I'll be around doing my lineups up until about 1 o'clock. So anything you guys need, let me know. And again, my name is David Starner. This is the RNFF Football Show. Thanks for joining us for week 3. We will see you guys next week.